Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo. So, pranam to all of you from South India, basically, today. You may have followed some of the histories we're sharing today in the morning, yesterday. I've been spending almost last week in Jagannath Puri, having the fortune of doing some pilgrimage parikram there in one of the many places that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu resided, of course, sacred place for many reasons, and especially in our Gaudiya tradition because of Mahaprabhu's presence there. He stayed there basically half of his life, a little bit less than that, but almost half of his life during his sannyas lila. The presence of Jagannath, temples of Jagannath, and so many connected spots. And from there we have traveled to South India, starting to go southern. And today we are finding ourselves on the banks of the Godavari River, as I mentioned briefly today in one of the stories. Beautiful place, another country, so in many ways, culturally, musically, aesthetically, so on and so forth. I think I have one problem with the microphone, at least it's showing coming and going. Can you hear me well, or is some interruption there? It's no problem. Okay. So yeah, this is the land basically mostly known Godavari River. On the banks of this river, Mahaprabhu and Sri Rai Ramananda had their famous sambad, or famous conversation, which, as Swami Maharaj was telling Maharaj days, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur mentioned that was the most important conversation in the history of the universe. So that's a good promotion, a good one-liner, right? The conversation in the history of the universe. Welcome to it. So we find that conversation in Caitanya-caritamrita revealed by Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami in the 8th chapter of the Madhya Lila, where Sriman Mahaprabhu asks Sri Ramananda Roy what's the goal of life, the ultimate goal of life, sadhya, and what's the sadhana or the practice to attain the ultimate goal of life. And Sri Rai Ramananda gives different answers, and there is a gradual crescendo, so to say, so of depth and breadth. And Mahaprabhu came to Ramananda, Eho Bahya Aggi Kaha Ar. That's somehow external in connection to the ultimate goal. Please go deeper, and so on, and go deeper and augment that truth. So Rai Ramananda being kind of a puppet in the hands of Mahaprabhu, both from the very foundations of the very first point he mentions is Varnashram, like be a balanced human being in society. And somehow Mahaprabhu rejects that as the ultimate goal of life. But as we were talking these days, it doesn't mean that he rejects that altogether, right? Because sometimes in the name of let's go to the higher thing, we can just rush, and skip layers that we need to integrate, that we need to internalize in order to attain the goal of life, the ultimate goal of life, with the same mind and without escapism, right? So it's not that all the things previous to the final answer of Ramananda Roy are to be discarded by us. It's just that they do not necessarily constitute the ultimate height, zenith, or peak of attainment in Mahaprabhu's eyes. But it doesn't mean that those things have to be utterly, fanatically, superficially neglected, rejected, dismissed, minimized, but actually properly acknowledged and appreciated and properly integrated on our journey, right? So anyhow, here happened that conversation where the highest conception of the truth, the ultimate depth of the Veda in Srila Sridhar Maharaj's words was revealed in Godavari. So we are very happy to be here. Today we also visited an ISKCON temple, like half an hour from here. And it was very nice to witness the culture, how they, for example, in the Arctic, they were doing at 4 p.m. There was no kirtan, in the usual sense of the term, with kartals, mridanga, and sung mantras, but they were playing, there was a family, husband, wife, and 2 kids, playing Carnatic music. Carnatic is the classical Hindu music of the South. The northern classical Hindu music is Hindustani music, but in the South it's Carnatic music. And it's instrumental music. There's no singing. And during the Arctic, they were offering instrumental, their hearts through instrumental music, basically. And it was so nice, so charming. And of course, it's a way of acknowledging the local sensibilities and praising Bhagavan in that context. Right? And yesterday, I was just studying the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam, the Uddhav Gita, where Krishna is instructing Uddhav. And in one of the verses famously is, and specifically in Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's purport, he's saying that one should praise Bhagavan in one's native tongue, one's local language. That there's place for that. And of course, the extension of that is in your local instruments, in your local style of music. It can happen. It doesn't mean that it must be a rule, but it's not forbidden either. And it's not like, oh, this is lower, this is higher. But what allows you to convey your intentions and convey your heart to Bhagavan in the best possible way. Palena farishite, right? You judge the tree by the fruit. So is the fruit a natural expression, extension of your heart and self to the Lord, or is the fruit something that you are just doing mechanically without knowing what you're saying or thinking, and there's more, you are more trapped in a head space than in a flow mode, so to say, from the heart. So we have to pay attention to those things. So we really can engage in Bhakti from a place that makes sense to us. So we appreciated that, if you want to call it cultural detail, but it's a cultural adjustment, this type of music that naturally facilitates experience. So whatever adjustments we need to do to facilitate the offering of our hearts, those adjustments are welcome and are necessary. So a few reflections on these last hours here, the South. And tomorrow we're already leaving again for the next destiny, which will be Tirupati, which is another sacred place in the South, getting southern and southern. Another place is basically, we're reading the other day, this is the most visited religious site of the whole India, Tirupati. Tens of thousands of visitors per day. So we hope we will be able to have darshan of Bhagavan in the Tirupati temple, because sometimes the queue to have darshan may be 12, 13, 14 hours. So pray for us. Whatever needs to happen, pray for us that we can properly honor and assimilate experience, right? So we'll be there for 2 days and then continue the journey for another 2 days, and so on and so forth. Somehow following the footsteps of Sri Chaitanya Dev, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who traveled south and visited all of these places. But somehow it is described with our acharyas that one of the main reasons he came south was to meet with Ramananda Roy, if not the main reason, to be instructed or guided or nourished by him in his inner culture to fulfill his main purpose for the descent, to taste the heart of Sri Radha. And in the particular temple we are staying now, which is called Ramananda Gaudiya Math, this is an international math inaugurated initially by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. This is one of his 64 maths that he originally opened. And the spot, Swami Maharaj was telling me, the spot here was kind of discovered by Bhakti-Rakshakshar Goswami Maharaj. Before being a sannyasi, he did some research with the locals and of course his own insight that led to the conclusion that this is the specific spot where Mahaprabhu and Rai Ramananda had their conversation, where we are just now. So it is said that after that, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was so happy. Maharaj was telling me today that his name, Brahmachari name, was Ramendra Sundar Prabhu. And then he was married at that time. So Ramendra Sundar, and then after discovering this place, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta renamed Srila Siddhar Maharaj Ramananda. Ramananda, as he mentions that name in the Prema Dhamma Deva Stotra. Before accepting sannyas again, no? In connection to here, to this particular discovery of the place of Ramananda and Sri Chaitanya Dev. So here we are now, Ramananda Gaudiya Math. Blessed to be with all of you, and I'm so relaxed that I see at least 4 hands raised today. So there are no further surprise parties today. I'm so glad. No revenge for my solar birthday that was yesterday. No. I can relax today. I don't know. Maybe I'm mistaken. You are just making this to further bewilder me. Let's see. So let's see if actually Sherry has a question, and then Jugal Kishore and Rasangir, you're all still playing with me like a toy. Sherry, please, you can unmute yourself.
Surprise! Happy birthday! No, just kidding.
Thank you.
But happy birthday also.
I'm still receiving greetings from the solar one yesterday.
Yes. Yeah. Pranams, Maharaj, and hello everyone. It's really good to be with you. And Maharaj, thank you so much for all the stories you've been posting. They've definitely been the highlight of my days. And I look forward to them. So thank you very much for that. My question is pretty basic. Life, as we know, is full of really hard stuff. But what I'm trying to kind of, maybe overthinking, but what does it mean when a person is being plunged into reversal after reversal after reversal for like a period of years? Is it Krishna like asking us to surrender even more than we have? Is it just our anarthas? Is it like the purification of our anarthas? Is it that we've just have such a huge ego, we have to be taken down so much? And I guess, we have the example of Queen Kunti, who celebrated these reversals, and even asked for more, and we have Draupadi, who, did the ultimate surrendering, and then felt that, felt Krishna, felt that rescue, felt that safety. But what if, we feel like we can't do what Queen Kunti had done? What if we're just not there in that place where the reversal after the reversal after the reversal starts to, I don't want to say punishment, but it starts to feel like we can't get back up, and we start to kind of disengage a little bit from Krishna. I guess my question is kind of just maybe some comments on that, and also if you could recommend any further reading from the scriptures, that might be beneficial in that department. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Well, so you begin asking if those reversal after reversal after reversal are whether Krishna asking us to surrender more, our own ego getting in the way, or other things. Maybe you are going through some complex astrological period. You can always blame to astrology. I'm joking, but sometimes it happens, right? So it's difficult to say, in the sense that, of course, you are asking me a general question. It's not about the particular case, though you may have a particular case in mind as it feels. So, but I'm not informed in detail about the particular case, so it's difficult to give a conclusive answer about why in certain situation this happened, or I feel this happening. And sometimes it can be a little bit of everything, right? In terms of Krishna asking us more surrender. Again, we should be very careful how we conceive that even. I mean, I have no problem to say Krishna is asking more surrender, but from which place, how we understand that phrase, right? Is he like like authoritarian, totalitarian leader? More surrender, more surrender. It's not enough. I want more. I want to see you more. No, I mean, we have to be careful how we depict him in those moments. Because as we always say, in moments of extreme difficulty, pain, suffering, shortcomings, bewilderment, you name it, that we may go through or others may go through, we try to make the case, hopefully as clear as possible, that Krishna, being made of unconditional love, he is trying to extend his presence to accompany us in those moments as much as possible. What form that such presence takes, etc., it may be different, how we perceive it, that's very unique according to the necessity of the situation. But that's the affirmation, the warranty given in Shastra, no? Rakshishati vishvaso gopritvi varanam. We have to trust that Krishna will protect us, and we have to accept that he's already maintaining us. And maintaining is not just providing food on the table. Maintaining is not merely financial security. Sometimes that may not even happen. But the ultimate maintenance is internal, and through love. So his unconditional love, we are being maintained. So when we have repeated reversals, of course, the immediate thing that comes to my mind, and I'm just talking by personal experiences, of course, we can, if the same situation or a similar situation, of course, no situation is exactly the same, but when we see like a recurrent pattern knocking on our door, we may be smart in asking ourselves, like, is there something that I'm failing to do? I mean, am I taking always the same stance myself that makes this situation come over and over again to knock my door, and maybe something different is expected from me at this point, right? And because I'm not willing to do that, or not even aware of that necessity, this situation comes over and over again, and I find it hard, because I would like to have a different situation knocking on my door, but sometimes it's not so much, oh, I want a different situation knocking on my door, but I want to change myself internally, so the so-called same situation knocking on my door no longer feels the same once I change. No, it's not so much about I want variety knocking on my door on a daily basis without me having to modify my own heart. But it's actually the opposite. No, try to develop a dynamic of change internally, so that even if the external situations are always the same, quote unquote, they will never be the same. So sometimes what we perceive, again, and I'm talking in general, right? Because maybe the background of this particular case is something very difficult, complex, traumatic, and I don't want to sound sensitive. It's just that I don't know if there's one specific situation, and if there is, I don't know that situation. But I'm just know that sometimes we become a little stubborn, we become a little complacent, we become a little evasive, escapist. Basically, we don't want to change for whatever reason, not to trigger any guilt or shame, but just to accept facts, right? Sometimes we forget that life is about change, and you never step twice into the same river, as they say. No? But sometimes we expect that to happen. And when that's not happening, oh, it's hard. Oh, it's difficult. Oh, I'm suffering. And many times it's just our own unwillingness to collaborate with the rhythm of life, our opposition to whatever the current wants to go and where it wants to take us, and we're trying just to swim in the opposite direction. And of course, it's hard, right? Try to swim against the current. Oh, it's hard. Right? Why don't you trust the current? That will be easier, but it may be hard to trust. But once you learn to trust, the current takes you way easier. Anyhow, I'm just giving some symbols in that connection. As far as the quote from Kunti Devi that you referred to, again, this is one of the beautiful sections of the Bhagavatam, And as beautiful as that is, it can be also very much, how to say, misquoted, in the sense of invoked out of context, invoked out of a sensitive understanding of who is talking and from which place. And we may just take the verse as, okay, I'm supposed to be saying that verse myself, and be willing to pay the price of the result of saying that verse, right? Etc. No, which it seems to be asking for one calamity after another. And we are not here promoting Gaudiya masochism. We are Gaudiya Vaishnavism. So those are two different traditions. So, and the commentators, and that's why many times it's important to know the commentaries on a verse. And commentaries doesn't mean only one commentary, but there are so many commentaries. And some commentators may say things that the other one didn't say. And in connection to this verse of Kunti Devi, where she is praying overtly for problems, for hardship, apparently, again, there are different ways to understand that, but ones that I personally like to say is mostly actually she's asking for situations that will, challenging situations, not extremely challenging, but challenging on a healthy level. We need healthy level challenges, because that will mirror back where we are actually standing in our life. When those situations do not have, we may over idealize even where we are, or under idealize in some cases. So a challenge comes and you are called to rise up to the challenge, and then you know where you are and you can establish your adhikar. And so Caitanya-caritamrita según Bhagavatam says, to know where you are, that's real piety. To be pious means to act from a platform of sincere acknowledgement of where you are, which are your capacities, which are your limitations, and how you can work on that. Like this famous Christian prayer, like, Lord, please, how it is, allow me to see what I must change, and give me patience to, I don't know, you tell me. Give me patience, give me acceptance to accept what I cannot change, patience to change what I have to change, and wisdom to discern the difference between those two, right? Something to that effect. I remember was in the bathroom in my house when I was a child. Beautiful. So it's very important. I don't know if that should be in the bathroom, but it was a good reminder. No, you're in the bathroom, you receive it. So it's important to know where we are. So for me, that verse applied to our situation. If I want to take that verse and somehow make it applicable to where I am, not so much from which place she spoke, but from which place does it applies to me, that's not the same. It will be that, okay, she's praying for a challenge, and one challenge after another that will show where she is, and when we, not she, accept where we are, apunar bhavadarshana, says the verse. One will see Krishna over and over again in a renewed way. It's another way of saying, with every challenge, Krishna is coming to renew his relationship with us, to update who he wants to be in our life. Every challenge taken in a healthy way invites us to change. Change. And in one way, the word challenge, you take a few letters out and you have the word change there. So every challenge invites us to a certain change. Once we embrace the invitation, Krishna reappears. We can rediscover who Krishna is in our lives. And that's what basically Kunti says, right? She's asking for this, and they say, I'm asking for this because when this happens, I'm seeing you over and over again. And this over and over again is not the same person, right? So it's Krishna newer and newer. So that's one way of understanding the verse in a way that it applies to where we are. But now the commentators say that actually Kunti Devi is praying that verse from her own, of course, inner level of realization. And one commentator says that verse is spoken from the platform of raga, and raga as one of the developments of prem. When we attain prem, divine love, Rupa Goswami describes a few developments: sneha, man, pranay, raga, anurag, bhav, mahabhav. Eight developments and further sub stages. So one is raga. So one of the symptoms of raga, Rupa Goswami describes in Ujjwal Nilaman, is that you experience extreme suffering or problematic situations as extremely joyful and full of bliss. So she's asking for suffering, or she's asking for problems, but she's asking all that from the platform of raga, which somehow translates all that stuff into ecstasy, into something completely joyful. So again, who has that inner machinery to transform hardship into ecstasy? So I'm saying this again because that's from which place she's talking. She's talking from that level of realization. Who has attained raga? That's that development of prem. Almost nobody, to be honest. So in that sense, it means almost nobody should take this verse literally and try to imitate Kunti, because that will be harmful. That doesn't mean we have to discard the verse altogether, but we can ask how this verse can apply to my situation. There's a place for that. We are not like twisting Shastra, like we were talking the last weeks on Govardhan Lila or on Gopastami. And we were describing the lila and extracting lessons from the lila that apply to our stage as sadhakas. It doesn't mean that the participants of the lila are on that level, but it doesn't deny that the lila, though being happening on a very high, deep level, nonetheless have teachings and lessons for all the lower levels. That's the nature of the higher thing. It also speaks to everyone else in the lower platforms. So in the same way, we read a verse spoken by someone in the platform of raga, further development of prem. We cannot imitate that, but we have to learn from that. So that's how ideally we should study Shastra. We find some of these verses. It's not that I take the verse out of context. I don't know who spoke it, from which inner level of realization, what the commentators say, what the person say before, what the person, and I just take the verse out of context and try to apply that to me. That can be very dangerous. You can go crazy by an improper approach to scripture. That's why hermeneutics are there. That's why it's a whole art in how to approach revelation in every tradition. How to understand it in context, because if not, we can just mutilate the scripture and take different portions without bad intention, but really miss the mark and really create unnecessary disturbance. So this is a good example for that. So yeah, we should not apply this verse of Kunti and try to relate to that literally, because we are not Kunti, but again, we can draw valuable lessons from that. Valuable lessons. So yeah, that's what's coming in now. I don't know if that helps, Sherry.
Yes, that does. Thank you.
As much as I could say, again, in general terms.
Yeah.
When something is, of course, more specific, one can address the situation more radically personal, but I try to keep it as radically personal as possible.
Yeah. No, thank you very much.
Thank you. Jugal Kishore, please.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Maharaj, for
Thank you.
giving us your time today, as always, and nice to see everybody. I always like to try to offer my respects to the Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis, because I know I somehow wind up on the microphone a lot. But thank you for calling on me. So here's a question, and I actually posed this to you about a week ago. This is what I was going to ask last week, and then we celebrated your birth instead, but somehow it's connected. Okay, so the question is, what's the relative importance of a creation myth, something like a large cosmogonic myth, right? We have so many different creation stories in the Bhagavatam, in the greater Hindu canon, as well as we also pull from other creation stories. At least I do a lot, you know, Genesis, and other things as well. So what is the relative importance of those myths when we're trying to understand something like the love stories of Krishna Lila, whether that's in the form of the Rasa Lila, Madhurya Ras, or maybe Damodar Lila in terms of Vatsalya Ras. Or of course, we could refer to so many other Leelas that are kind of the epitome of those different flavors of relationship. So it's hard for me to kind of commensurate those two things. We have these creation stories, but we have these love stories, and how to weigh them, against each other, or maybe not against each other, but just what is the value relatively of those two things in relation to each other?
Yes, thank you. I'll share a few thoughts. You conclude almost saying, okay, we have on one side creation stories, and we have on the other side love stories. And we, Gaudiya Vaishnava, will say actually creation is a love story. So we will try to put these two together, because and not only for us, I've read also from different Christian authors who also will conceive it in a similar way. For example, mystical Christianity, they have this expression of kenosis. You may have heard that, kenosis. Kenosis means like self-emptying. So it refers to God's self-emptying of his heart, and that somehow becomes material creation, at least in the eyes of many Christian mystics. And of course, they will say that God is love. So it's God is love, his heart is love, he's self-emptying that which is love, and that becomes this material creation as an extension of God's heart, which is love. So there you have something in connection. In our own tradition, I always like to quote Vedanta Sutra and this connection, Lokabhatu Lila Kaivalyam, which basically means the whole creation, the whole cosmos is a lila of Bhagavan. So lila means basically love story, technically speaking, because lila is the interaction between God and love. And when you have love and God, you have lila, you have divine play. When you have interaction without love, you have karma. No, that's not lila in one sense. But in the background of material creation is God's own heart. Again, it's very similar to the notion of kenosis. Instead of God emptying his heart in the form of this world, we will say God's overflowing of his heart and overflowing the form of material creation. Doesn't mean that it has a beginning in time, because of course we always tend to think in terms of beginnings and ends. But Lokabhatu Lila Kaivalyam, basically in the commentaries to that sutra, describe God is like a drunkard, literally. So he's drunk, he's like in a frenzy, intoxicated with his own bliss. That's the nature of the absolute. He's made of bliss. They are made of bliss. The one becomes many. No, that's also some Upanishadic statements. No, the absolute, the one non-dual absolute, for the sake of rasa and enjoyment, multiplies and becomes one and two, divine couple, and many living entities in the world. Of course, there are ways of trying to express how whatever that exists is rooted in an absolute, which is, in our tradition, we'll say rasa vaisaha. Rasa vaisaha means he is indeed rasa. Rasa vaisaha. Saha means he or it. We refer to the absolute, whatever gender you want to invoke. Rasa means the highest peak of loving rapture, and vai means indeed. So indeed he is that. So the creation stories, I will say, well, you use the word myths. So of course that's a loaded word, in the sense that many times the word myth is understood as something that is not true. No? But I'm not saying that you are intending that, but I get your point, if you meant that. But many times we can use the word myth to refer to something, as Father Richard will say, a myth is not something that is not true. A myth is something that is always true. So in other words, there may be stories that may not be literally may have not literally happened, but they're pointing to something that is always true. So in that sense, a myth is always true. No, despite the technicality of, but did that historically happen on planet Earth, and Adam and Eve actually walked here or came from that place called? No, you're not getting the point. That's not the whole idea of these creation stories, but it's to point to something that is always true. So most of these creation stories, if not all, try to depict the creation, or if it's not creation, ex nihilo, out of nothingness, from zero, the manifestation or remanifestation of the cosmos, and to depict that always in connection to the divine. So that's the recurring theme. If, like we were talking recently on the Srimad Bhagavatam, I mean, Parikshit Maharaj has 7 days to live. That's not much time in one sense, of course. In another sense, a few seconds is enough to attain perfection, but 1 week is not much time. So he asked Sukadev Goswami, we know these famous different questions, and Sukadev Goswami, when he starts to answer, the very first thing he says is, he starts to describe the Virat Rupa, the universal form. He starts to describe this whole cosmos as the body of God. That's his beginning point. Like implying, learn to see the world in connection to God. Do not see matter isolated from the divine. If you don't get that one, you won't get what's coming after this. And I'm paying attention to the other different sessions of the Bhagavatam, different speakers talking to different audiences. Almost in all of them, in the beginning, you have a Virat Rupa version of that. They almost always start with describing matter, the interaction of matter in connection to Krishna, in connection to God. Like trying to make that point, creation stories, always in connection to God. This world, this cosmos, is not to be seen separated, because separateness is if you want to put the main anartha we are dealing with at the present moment. We see ourselves separate. We see other people as not belonging. We don't see this world integrated in God. We don't see ourselves existing in Krishna. Panentheism. Everything is in Krishna, and Krishna is in everything. We still don't see that. We still don't feel that. There is separateness that gets in the way of living mystically. So the Bhagavatam tries to make that point. Many times, for example, you refer to the Rasa Lila, the love story par excellence in the Bhagavatam. Sometimes also the Rasa Mandala. Mandala means circle. So the circle of Rasa, the circular dance of divine love. So that's the peak of the Bhagavatam, right? Rasa Mandala. So that's the love story. And in relation to the creation story, the descriptions of sometimes this planet is described as Bhumandala. Bhumandala. So mandala, the word mandala not only means circle, but mandala also refers like a mandala. Right? A mandala is like a design which is meant for meditation, right? So you can have a mandala in front of you and contemplate the mandala. Like a yantra, you have heard yantra, but mandala is a variety of that. So mandalas are objects of meditation. So this world is called Bhumandala, implying it's an object of meditation. You have to absorb your faculties in learning to contemplate this creation. You have to meditate in this creation. In fact, Sridhar Swami, famous Bhagavatam commentator, parallel all this description of the creation stories in the Bhagavatam with the X stages of the Ashtanga Yoga system, and starts to speak about how you have to practice dhyana, dharana, dhyan. You have to contemplate dharana, the truths about the sacredness of this creation. Dhyana, you have to deeply meditate on that. And samadhi, then you will enter into a type of trance in appreciating that. So the Bhagavatam gives that foundation, Bhumandala. Learn to see creation as a mandala, as an object of something worthy of being meditated upon. When you do your homework properly with that Bhumandala, then you can go to the Rasa Mandala. First Bhumandala, then Rasa Mandala. First, see creation, see the creation story as something sacred, and then you can understand the love story, the Rasa Mandala of the Bhagavatam. So Bhagavatam has both creation story and love story. But if you understand all of them properly, you will see all of this stuff is a loving affair. Because the whole of creation, again, is coming as an overflow of God's heart, exploding in the form of matter. So by properly seeing matter in that way, naturally you will better understand what God is doing on earth. Because the Rasa Mandala, the Rasa Lila of the Bhagavatam happens here on earth. All the Lilas in the Bhagavatam are not happening in Golok Vrindavan, are happening on this planet. So it's very interesting because first the Bhagavatam teaches us Bhumandala, see this whole creation as sacred. And then the Bhagavatam starts to describe how God comes over and over again in different forms to this world to perform Lila. And ultimately all that explodes into the Rasa Lila, all of which is taking place on the stage of the earth. So again, hopefully you see the thread here, right? The thread. Scriptures say the whole cosmic manifestation comes from God's overflowing heart and love explosion. And then if that's not enough, he comes to validate the sacredness of matter by coming as an avatar over and over again, performing Lila, expressing love, and the ultimate love story, if you want to call it that way, Rasa Lila, it's happening here on earth. So the Bhagavatam is gradually preparing the ground for us to enter into all those layers of understanding. So that's how I personally will connect creation story, with love story. So we can then go back to creation stories or to creation and see that as a love story. It comes from a love story. It comes from Radha Krishna's heart overflowing. And this is the result of it, if we have the eyes to see. And it continues unfolding. Whatever happens after the universe manifests, it's an unfolding of that love story. And Bhagavan himself comes here over and over again to play that drama, to play that lila, that loving lila, over and over again, forever. Jiva Goswami will say, right? It's not that Krishna comes once every time and I won't come here again. That's too frustrating. He ends up and immediately he's doing that again, and immediately he's doing that again. So that's very validating for the world of matter. And that's trying to show matter is the perfect, in one sense, the world of matter represents a very beautiful, perfect stage for the drama of divine love to be played out, right? So some thoughts, I don't know if that contributes to the inquiry. I hope so. Thank you for your question, and exploration. We are all engaging in this together. Thank you. Okay, we can continue. Next raised hand is from Rasangi from California. We have to clarify now.
I know, I met her today. And she gave me a new definition of my name. One who's
I was there listening everything in silence.
Oh, I love it.
Hiding behind a tamal tree or something.
I'm so excited because I've never felt that connected to my name and understood it. She helps me to feel very happy about it, actually.
Rasangi. Angi literally means body. And rasa means rasa, as we just talked. Anga means limbs of the body, but Angi means the body. So she whose whole body is made of rasa, basically, right? Yeah.
A spiritual excitement, I think she used that word, and I can relate to that, as everybody knows. And I just want to say, Maharaj, that I love coming to swim in these waters with y'all. This is like...
Which waters?
This is like bathing.
Godavari. We went to the Godavari to swim today.
No, but being with you and everybody here is like bathing in holy waters. It feels like I come out feeling very revived. I feel alive again, no matter how hard my week was. I feel refreshed and revived. So thank you so much for that. And I loved how and happy birthday again. I hope you had a wonderful day. I'd love to hear about it sometime. But I loved how you associated the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Two.
That was it. Thank you.
Two, and it's to God. It's a prayer to a personal God. And I love that you equated it to every challenge in our life is Krishna coming to update his presence in our lives. I love that so much.
Yeah, that's happening that's what's happening, taking place all the while, actually, not only with the challenge, right? Just in case, brief clarification, because when you feel like relaxed and cool, it doesn't mean that Krishna is not inviting you to a new level of relationship, right?
I love that.
Yeah.
And there's so much to unpack there with that itself, to how to understand the sufferings of life. There is a book called Why Do Bad Things Happen to Good People? Scholars and theologians have been writing about this from time immemorial, and it's very helpful to talk about this. My question today, though, is I just read in a book today that Bhakti is a path of love, and where there's love, there's no rules. And where there's rules, there is no love. I don't know if it's exact correlation, but not that I want to be a rebel and a total rule breaker. Or didn't Srila said he's a form breaker, not a form maker? Anyway, so how do we know when our bhakti is being impeded by the rules? How do we understand within ourselves as we go through our lives how to bypass the rules for the love prompting or the guidance from within toward love?
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Okay, thank you. So, I remember we talked a few weeks ago about rules, if I'm not mistaken, but it's an ongoing conversation, of course, because in every tradition there are rules, but the important thing is not so much to follow the rules or not to follow, but to know their purpose. Many times we forget this important word, purpose. and we may end up following the rules, but what's the purpose? In fact, I was thinking, because the first question Sherry also asked me, I remember now, and it's connected to purpose. For a recommendation of a book to read, and of course, I've recommended this book so many times in so many contexts, but it's very related to Sherry's question and to this point, which is Viktor Frankl's, again, Man's Search for Meaning, which of course depicts a very hard situation, very complex, but still so much purpose is there, right? So, and he will make this famous statement, right? Like, as long as you have purpose, you can survive, basically. I'm not paraphrasing, I'm just making my point. As long as you have purpose, you can survive anything and everything. But the moment you stop finding purpose, no matter how much things you have externally, how much comfort, how much everything, it's never enough. Because you lost sight of purpose. And purpose is the goal of life, he will make that point. Now, this is a very powerful point. He will say, happiness is not the goal of life. The goal of life is purpose. Even when you are suffering, you can find purpose. When you are happy, you can find purpose. So that's always available. So when you are suffering, it's not that, okay, I want to be happy. No, find purpose. because I want to be happy, maybe just escaping from suffering without finding purpose, right? Many times our so-called pursuit of happiness is like a shortcut not to find purpose in suffering, right? Pain and suffering are messy. I'm not saying it's a joke. And it's complex and it's painful. But many times what makes it more painful is our unwillingness to find purpose there and just expect, when will this be over? You know? When I will receive relief, when I will be happy, but I'm not learning my lesson yet. I'm not drawing purpose. So purpose is so crucial. And ultimately, in Sanskrit, the word for purpose is artha. One of them, artha. And the word for prem, Mahaprabhu calls prem panchama purusartha. Artha is also a name for divine love. So the goal of life, Viktor Frankl will say, is purpose. And we say the goal of life is love. But love and purpose are the same thing, ultimately. Right? When you love, really love, you discover the actual purpose of everything and anything. Naturally, one thing takes you to another. So I'm saying all this again in connection to the idea of rules. Sometimes we get like overtly concerned with, not even with following the rules, but with not failing in following the rules. Sometimes the main concern is not to fail doing whatever we are supposed not to fail, not even doing them, but not failing in doing them. But we disconnect from purpose many times. So when we lose sight of the purpose, the rule becomes an obstacle to love. So again, with this, we are not saying stop following rules. We are saying start finding purpose in what you are doing. And that's connected to love. That's what we are saying. That's getting closer and closer to love. The more you're able to discover purpose, the real purpose of what's going on, the more you get closer to love, because love is the ultimate purpose behind everything. So, so following rules, we have to try to make that exercise. And whatever I'm doing, whatever rule I'm following, how can I connect this? What's the purpose of that first? Why do I'm doing it? It's just because someone else is doing it, because they told me to do it, because I'm afraid of not doing it, because the consequence of not doing it or whatever. Or there's some positive. How can I relate whatever rule I'm following to love? That's the idea. So, yes, I remember talking with Rabbi Bradley Artson in the podcast we made, and he will describe how in the Jewish tradition they have lots of rules, but he will tell me actually those rules are the byproduct of our love for God. Like, because we love God, we follow the things because we know in their tradition, of course, we know this pleases Him. So I'm following this rule out of love. So that's a good way of putting it. Whatever rules you follow them out of love, out of your love for your guru, out of your love for the Vaishnavas, out of your love for Krishna, out of certain positive feeling that makes you follow that rule with a positive feeling, with a certain purpose, with a certain understanding. And naturally, by doing that, that same rule being properly followed will reveal further and further levels of meaning and purpose, ultimately culminating in divine love. So yeah, the idea is that Bhakti, of course, Bhakti is, we could say, a path of the heart, path of love, a path of devotion. And in that sense, we could say it's not a path of rules, it's a path of love. But of course, where we are in terms of that love, where we are in terms of Bhakti, because Bhakti is, there are degrees of Bhakti, right? It's not that everyone is 108% in Bhakti immersed. So depending where we are, we have to relate to rules accordingly. Rules are, again, as we say the other day, I remember we talked about that when we talked about this. Sometimes even the word rule may be a trigger for some of us. Just the word, it's not inspiring because we may associate rule with who knows what. So you may need to use another word, and it's okay. But don't miss the essence. For me, rules it's a facilitator. No, a rule doesn't have to be a suffocator of bhakti, but a facilitator of bhakti. Like the example we can give the example of, and I always give this example, so sorry to repeat myself, but if we are playing a game and the game will be fun and exciting and adventurous, there have to be some rules to the game. If I tell you, let's play this game, and you don't know what the game is about, probably you will ask me, so what are the rules of the game? And I say, there are no rules in the game. You can do whatever you want. That's the game. And you will say, that's boring. That's not exciting. I want rules. I want rules to have fun. Sounds contradictory, right? But there is a place for rules and fun. There is a place for rules and excitement, as long as the rules are allowing for the experience, right? Are facilitating the experience. That's the role of rules. When rules go beyond that and start to suffocate the experience, suffocate the wonder, suffocate the excitement, make us lose a purpose and meaning, they are no longer rules. They are not fulfilling their purpose. Right? Smartavya sattam vishnurti smartavya najat chit. Sarva viddhini sedasura tayore vakinkara, says Vishnu Puran. All these rules and regulations are there as servants of this one principle. Basically, fall in love with Krishna. Always think of him, never forget him. So all these rules are there to facilitate your inner absorption in the divine. If that's not happening, the rules are not to blame, but probably the rule follower is to be re-examined. That's us. From which place I'm following the rule, from where I'm adhering to this belief or to this mandate, whatever. And we have to do this exercise on a daily basis. No? Whatever I'm doing, from which place I'm doing it. No? Because it's so easy to get into mechanistic performance, catatonic repetition, especially in a practice like any spiritual practice that you used to do the same things every day externally. So how to keep those same things never the same? That requires daily vigilance and daily introspection, and that's tapasya. That takes inner effort and energy and determination. So, but we need to do that to keep the fire alive, so to say, to tend to the fire. You cannot expect just that the fire keeps itself by itself and grows by itself. You know, you need to tend the fire, tend the bhakti flame. So yeah. Try to pay attention to the fruit of whatever rules we are following. Try to pay attention if they are taking us to a certain experience and understanding. And if that's not happening, that doesn't mean we need to reject the rules. We may just need to rediscover them. Maybe those rules took us to an experience during a certain time, and now that's not happening anymore. That doesn't mean I may need to reject it. I may need just to rediscover it. What this rule mean in a deeper level, and in a deeper level, and in a deeper level. And at one point you will find love at the deepest level. And you may externally even follow some of those rules, and you are absolutely ecstatic. No? You want to follow the rules, but maybe love is so powerful that you cannot follow all those rules. That can happen. You know, this famous prayer, I don't know if it's Madhavendra Puri, Jamunacharya, I read it recently and many times. Like they are begging forgiveness to their daily rituals, and sorry, my morning prayers, and so on this because I'm being captured by this beautiful flute player that is driving me mad. So because of this, I'm no longer able to follow all this stuff as I'm supposed to because I'm possessed now. So he's praying, like begging forgiveness to all those things. So he's not just taking it cheaply, like, oh no, now I'm a Bhava Bhakta, so I don't need to follow this stuff. So goodbye, rules or regulations. I don't care for you. He's like, sorry, I'm trying my best, but Bhakti gets in the way, so to say. Of course, a way of putting that. No, so again, going back to what we say before, we have to see where we are and act accordingly from there. some thoughts, Sangi. Hope that nourishes the churning and the exploration of this important topic. Niyamagraha, as Rupa Goswami will put it. Don't follow rules superficially, but also don't reject all rules in a very, how do you say, what's this word? Whimsically. Don't reject rules whimsically. Don't embrace rules superficially. Find the middle point between those two, right? Always the middle path is the recommended path.
Or Maharaj, rigidly, don't accept them rigidly. The rigidity can keep us from experiencing it in a different way. Thank you so much. And you don't have to talk about this now, but sometime I'd love to hear you talk about that. Srila Maharaj calls this Bhakti path a crooked path, like snake-like. It's not straight and narrow. It's like very...
Next Saturday.
Oh, goody. Love to hear that.
Okay, remind me about that, and we talked about that. Yeah.
Love it. Thanks so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Gayatri from Texas, please. Welcome.
Yeah. Good morning or good evening. I suppose it is at your end. Maharaj, a warm, belated happy birthday to you as well, too, as Gayatri is sending you a little extra sunshine today as you go into the evening hours.
Thank you.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. A special welcome as well, too, or hello to Sumati, who I understand has moved to Texas, is not too far away. So to her and her friend as well, too. Just welcome to my backyard or our state here. My question, Maharaj, is very simple today, and I always marvel. It's a question that's been kind of burning in my heart all week, and when I show up, maybe it's just me and my perspective, but each of the other questions, I'm like, how does that all line up? The sense of separateness falls apart here. So my question plays off a little bit of what Yugala Kishore shared. Very interested in the love story part of your answer to the same. Forgive me as well, I haven't read nor studied the Bhagavatam yet, and hope to rectify that in 2025. So my question might be very simple, but it has to do with Radha and Krishna. And I hear you talk about, right, the necessity of praying for the two of them to come together and all the different degrees of separation, as it were. How do I phrase this question? I'm wondering why they are separate. Is it just how it is? Is it just a matter of time for them to come together? Do they face certain obstacles that they must overcome to come together? So just curious to understand a little bit more about that love story, so that I can pray specifically and appropriately for them. And then B, like maybe, there are those of us here at the table or elsewhere who, right, we might relate to some of what they're going through, or what they're going through is relevant to us as well, too. So how we can bring that down into our lives potentially, too. So I hope that makes sense.
It does. Thank you. First of all, a brief clarification. I don't think I've said that we have to pray for them in that way. I will say that mostly when someone attains certain level of realization in which one is internally participating in their lila, one will be instrumental in facilitating the reunion, so to say. No, like I like to put it sometimes, as insignificant as we may be in one sense, the ultimate service of many souls in our tradition will be to save the lives of Radha and Krishna on a daily basis, because they are dying in separation from each other, and everyone will be invited to facilitate their reunion. But I didn't say, like, from where we are now, we have to pray for them. I mean, it may be a little bit like coming from a place of forced, like, I'm not canceling that if one has that proper connection and inspiration, but if not, it may be like too too unrelatable for many situations in which one is still dealing with. So that's the role of separation. Of course, when we say Radha and Krishna are separated, we have to be careful also what we understand by that, because technically speaking, I mean, there are so many different ways to talk. There's something called tattva vichar, which is the point of view or the consideration from the point of view of metaphysical truth. And then it's rasa vichar, or the point of view from the consideration of the relishment of rasa in the lila. So from the point of view of tattva vichar, Radha and Krishna are never separated, because they are one. And then comes now the paradox. Radha and Krishna, we speak about them being two, but the two in one sense are, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Prema Sampood will say, they are one soul in two bodies. How about that one? Jugal Kishore is going mad at this moment. I can see his face. See, we start to talk about God. This is supremely paradoxical. There are so many things that in one sense are very contradictory for us that get resolved and harmonized in the divine. So words, thoughts, it's complicated. No? In fact, we can talk, as I like to speak sometimes, even in terms of a trinity, right? Not only couple Radha and Krishna, but you can invite Balaram to the equation, so to say. And you have these three principles of Sandini, Sambit, Ladini, or Satchidananda, which is a trinity, and finds perfect place to speak about God as as Christianity speaks about God as a trinity, not so much three people, different people, disconnected three, but one and three at the same time. So we can make a similar case in a certain way. Again, this is a long conversation. I'm just touching upon some points. So all this to say, in one sense, Radha and Krishna is not like they are separated in the same way as we experience separation now from someone, because we still, again, are under the spell of separateness. So we are even separated from, we feel separation from everyone, even if we are in front of everyone, right? Because we have separateness. So even if you are in front of me now, if I don't have an inner realization of our interrelationship, interconnection, there is separation, there is separateness going on. What to speak if you are not in front of me physically? Another form of separation. But again, if my foundation is separateness, I'm disjointed from reality to begin with. I'm fractured. My consciousness is fragmented. So when we talk about, I'm saying all this because we may think of separation from our fragmented lenses, but when we talk about separation of Radha and Krishna, that's happening on a foundation of relationality and love and union. and it's not the type of idea we have now of separation. Actually, their separation is another form of union, technically speaking. It's another dynamics of their union. They are, in one sense, never separated. It's just what it takes. In one sense, it's one of the dynamics of love to renew and to have the experience of meeting again with each other. Because if you don't, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur will make the case in the Goswamis, if you are always together with someone, you can never experience reuniting with that person because you are there. So separation creates a particular nuance in the relationship. And in separation, there is, in one sense, no separation, because in the external absence of the beloved, the inner feeling for the beloved internalize and condense. And there's this famous verse by Rupa Goswami when Radha says, when I'm with Krishna, in front of Krishna, I see one Krishna. When I'm in separation from Krishna, I see 1,000 Krishnas. Because in separation from him, everything reminds me of Krishna. Krishna becomes Manifiesto. So arguably, when is Krishna more present, right? You start like to, and you have many verses from our Acharya saying that in one sense, separation is the highest thing. Not because devotees consciously look for that. It's not like, okay, let's make arrangement to separate from each other. But whatever happens in those moments nourishes, internalizes, empowers and fosters the union. And that's why in Sanskrit the word for separation can translate also as special type of union, viyoga or viraha. All this be in Sanskrit can refer to bina, which means without union. That means separation, but also be can refer to vaishishta rupa, like a special type of union. We call it separation. So in one sense, Radha and Krishna are never separated. They're always residing in each other's heart. That's what Krishna says in the Bhagavatam, Sadabo hridayam mayam sadanam hridayam tvaham. I am my devotee's heart, my devotees are my heart, I am their heart. So we are like bumblebees in each other's lotus hearts, right? The heart of a devotee, the heart of Bhagavan is like a lotus flower. Each one is like a bumblebee, drinking the nectar of love to the person, intoxicated with that nectar. So intoxicated that the bumblebee forgets to leave the flower. It becomes night, the flower closes, and the bumblebee is trapped in the lotus flower. That's how it has been poetically described. So Krishna is like an intoxicated bumblebee tasting the love in the heart of his devotee. He cannot leave that heart because he's too intoxicated in the labor of tasting that. And the same applies for the devotee in Krishna's heart. It's a reciprocal bumblebee intoxication going on. So if he's our heart, we are his heart, so to say. How much you can talk about separation? And again, it's a separation which do not occur on a foundation of separateness. So therefore, even separation fosters union. But when there is a foundation of separateness, even union fosters separation. That's what happens in this world. If the foundation is separateness, the closer we get to each other, maybe the more we want to get rid of each other sometimes, or who knows what. But in the opposite, if the foundation is not separateness, but full relationality, even something like so-called separation, it's augmenting and magnifying the relationship. So how much we can call that separation, that's a good question, maybe. So I know it's difficult to put into words all this, because to fully understand what we are talking about, we have to go ourselves beyond separateness. That's why sometimes our acharyas do not go so much more into the details. If we don't have that adhikar, that eligibility, we are not prepared to understand what happens beyond separateness. If we are not there and we hear all that, we will filter all those descriptions with our glasses of separateness, and we will get a very distorted idea of what's going on there. And that's the greatest disservice we could possibly do. So that's why many of our acharyas have been very cautious about not not entering too much specificity on what happens in the realm beyond separateness, if the audience is still considerably affected by separateness. That's the case, then we have to work on that first. Again, foundational groundwork to guarantee that the temple we want to build won't crumble and be destroyed in a few days, so to say. Sustainable project, as I like to say, we are Vaishnavas. Vaishnava come from Vishnu, and Vishnu is the god of sustainability, right? Brahma creates, Shiva destroys, Vishnu maintains. So Vishnu is our god. Vishnu maintenance, sustainability. We have to be good Vaishnavas, means whatever we do has to be sustainable, not only in the short term, but middle, long term. So some thoughts. I hope that helps, Gayatri. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I couldn't get the audio, but it's so poetic. Really appreciate it. Very profound as well, too. I will meditate on that.
Well, you asked me to talk about the love stories, so we cannot do it without poetry.
Yes.
Aichikavitva vinu nahirasera prachar, says Caitanya-caritamrita.
Gorgeous.
We have to do rasa prachar, or to talk about love. Aichikavitva vinu nahir. We cannot not employ poetry, basically. You cannot not, on some level, you cannot not become poetic when talking about love. You must. That's the language of love. So, yeah. Thank you for the question.
Absolutely.
We have one more hand raised from Kanupriya from Germany. So we'll conclude with that before going to our breakout rooms. So please, Kanupriya, you can mute
Hare
yourself.
Krishna. So
Welcome.
I raised my hand quite late. So is there enough time to?
We have eternity on our side.
Okay.
We may have 10 minutes or something for today, but of course we can do our best and continue exploring in other sessions if not.
Okay. So thank you very much for all your deep and inspiring answers. I have a question which came up in a discussion in our community, and nobody really found an answer to this question. So it is
Not to put pressure on me, right?
So the question is, the Hare Krishna Maha-mantra is, of course, for us, the most important mantra, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught it to us. But why is it not mentioned in the Caitanya-caritamrita, cited? Is it yet?
Yeah.
Cited in the Caitanya-caritamrita.
Mhm.
Because it's a biography of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and why did Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami didn't mention or cite this mantra?
Okay, thank you for the question. So actually the Maha-mantra, of course, as you say, kind of praise the Maha-mantra. No need to go into the details of that Maha-mantra, the great mantra of deliverance. It's a Yuga Dharma, according to our tradition given by Mahaprabhu. And Caitanya-caritamrita, we could say, is the main book on Mahaprabhu's life. But there are many other biographies, and we don't want to dismiss them. But Caitanya-caritamrita somehow is the culmination of the other biographies, because there are like 7 main ones, and Caitanya-caritamrita is the last. Before Chaitanya Mangal, Chaitanya Charit Mahakavya, Chaitanya Bhagavat, and so on. So somehow one should expect, okay, why the Maha-mantra is not directly pronounced? Of course, we hear that Mahaprabhu is singing the name of Hari. Now, many times this is like kind of the reference given in Caitanya-caritamrita, or he may be singing Hari Haraya Nama Krishna, Yadavaya Namaha, and some other names of Krishna during Kirtan. But according to the question, and I appreciate the research, I haven't never did like a research, okay, is this ever said or mentioned? So it's a good question to ask, because we don't want to just take things for granted. So it seems, according to your research, and I trust your research, that there is
not my. It's
okay.
I'm not a scholar, but the other devotees, and there was some very learned devotees, and they said no, it's not mentioned in Caitanya-caritamrita.
Interesting. Good. So there are a few things I could say. Of course, I cannot just tell you this is why, so to say, like I know why. I know why Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami didn't say that. No, it's not, how to say, it's not possible to, for me at least, to read the mind of certain people. But of course, at the same time, there are certain verses where, can I give you an example? Because I'm doing, meanwhile I'm answering you, I'm doing some quick research here myself. And I'm sorry to having to contradict whomever did the research in your group, but I immediately found a verse where the Maha-mantra is coming.
Ah.
It came quickly. It came quickly, so that for me means that probably there's more than this one. I'm just sharing one. There's the verse there. I will read it with you. It's Caitanya-caritamrita, Ante Lila, chapter 9, verse 56. Says, Se kahe baninat nirbhai laya Krishna nam, Hare Krishna, kahe abhishram. So basically it's saying that a messenger was replying. He was fearlessly, incessantly chanting Krishna nam, according to the original Bengali. And they say Hare Krishna, and of course the whole Maha-mantra is not there, but Hare Krishna, we know which mantra starts like that, so to say. No, it's not saying that they are just saying Hare Krishna, and it's over. No, that's also my point. We may not need to find, okay, there's no single Bengali verse that it includes the whole Maha-mantra in the verse or things like, I mean, it's, and I'm, again, now I'm seeing another verse. Until Lila, chapter 16, verse 7. Again, Kau tuketi tenho jadi pasaka kelai, Hare Krishna, kari pasaka chalai. So again, referring to the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. So, I mean, probably that will be my answer. It's there. It's in the Caitanya-caritamrita. And of course, then we have these other references to Iti Sudasakam Nam Nam Kali Kalmasanasanam Nata Parataro Upayubhav Sarva Videsudrishate from the Kalisantara Upanishad, which also refer to chanting of the Maha-mantra. And then also, and again, I'm seeing you can just put Hare Krishna in database and then select Caitanya-caritamrita and select the filter the text by the synonyms. So we will show which words appear actually in the verse by verse, word by word translation. And I'm seeing a few others, again, Madhya Lila, anyhow, I won't go into each number of them. And also in Chaitanya Bhagavat, there's also mention that Mahaprabhu is, and the Maha-mantra is mentioned, he's chanting. So it's mentioned there. He may not be overtly mentioned, but again, also, how to say, some things do not need to be overtly mentioned. Bhagavatam says, Krishna stu Bhagavan's. And for Jiva Goswami, there's a few words that appears only once in the Bhagavad, and he makes his whole presentation around that. You know? So in the same way, Maha-mantra is there, it's mentioned here and there. Mahaprabhu is then living embodiment of chanting and how to chant. And that's, I will say, that's the main emphasis. No, okay, it's mentioned here and there. The Maha-mantra is chanted, and then the rest is how to chant it, how to live a life coherent with the chanting, how to relate to others, how to do this, how to do that. It was already clarified. This then the main elaboration is how he lived his life, how he related to other people, which were the effects of the chanting, and so on and so forth. No? But again, it's there. So, and again, it came very similar, very quickly in the research. I'm sure if I do a more intensive one, many other sections may come. So that will be my answer. Very brief, because how we found those verses quickly.
Thank you very much. I will forward your answer to the devotees of my community.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. If there are any further questions in that regard, we can continue the conversation. Okay. Thank you so much to all of you. So we will conclude here for a minute, not completely, but we will go to our Zoom breakout rooms. But I conclude here for our main session now. For those, of course, of you who are willing, we will open breakout room for a few minutes. So we will be sharing one-on-one and share whatever touched us mostly today, whatever you feel inspired to share with someone else, so we can continue fostering significant ties and bonds in the family, in our Tadadmya tribe, so to say. So Bhakti Rasa, she is ready to press the button and send each one of us to whatever